my channel. I hope you're having a lovely Sunday and fingers crossed the sun is shining. Today I am doing a video all about weddings. So I've been planning on doing something for a while that kind of combines like wedding planning, what I've learnt so far, guest dressing if you're not getting married, and I thought tying it all into one video might be quite nice because it's one of those things I think hopefully whether you're getting married or you're not, there'll be little takeaways and useful things. And yeah, I'm really excited to be doing this today. I'm working with Kiki K on this video, which is really exciting because they're one of my favourite ever stationery brands and their wedding selection is amazing. So I'm really excited to be talking about that. And yeah, I've made some notes in my little notebook here so I can kind of lead you through the whole process and how we got started. And yeah, should we get going? First things first, when we got engaged, we sat down and we really felt overwhelmed. There are so many different elements to consider with getting married, and obviously we had I had a Pinterest board for a really long time with different ideas on it and things that I'd seen popping up for a really long time prior to getting engaged. But when you look at it from a perspective where you have a budget and you have real requirements of guests and locations, actually it's quite hard to organise all your thoughts because you're like, I can't do it all. I can't have this beachside, I don't know, bohemian wedding with all these beautiful tables, all these flowers coming from the sky. I don't know, you have all these really elaborate thoughts. So we sat down together and then the first thing we thought of was location, and it was really important for us that we decided whether we wanted to do it abroad or at home. And because we've got all the relatives that we knew wouldn't be able to travel and all our friends are in London, we felt like doing it at home in our home city was just the easiest. And I say easiest, but it was something we both wanted. It was almost a knee-jerk reaction. We were like, well, we want to do it in London. We found a venue, which is really exciting, but that was the first thing. And then once we decided an area, we then had to look at our guest list, which is and was still probably the hardest thing because you are trying to cut down on people. And I'm definitely someone that I can get so carried away and I'm like, oh, let's invite the postman, and I get really excited. But when you kind of look at a venue, we looked at about 3 different venues and then we realised, well, we found the one we want and they had quite a strict guest number, which in a way is a hindrance, but in a way it's a real benefit because it really keeps you in line with the things that, the requirements and the numbers you can have, because I think otherwise you can get so carried away. And then when you realise how much each guest can cost in terms of food and favours if you want them, all these different factors, it's actually really helpful to have a set number. Another thing I really think when starting off to plan is really listen to the people that give you advice who know what they're talking about. So when we sat down with our caterers, it was so useful hearing about the things that could make things more appropriate for our budget. They were talking about canapes and saying, well, you can completely cut them, but people do get really peckish in between the ceremony, and obviously the time in between those two things can make quite a difference. And then they were saying, well, if you have canapes, you really need your starters. So it's really beneficial to talk to people and really take advice on where you want to try and be more budget friendly. For example, with desserts, we're hoping to have a dessert table instead of one dessert in front of you so people can go up and help themselves. Again, with things like that, maybe you could ask friends and family to bring a bake. Obviously, if they're not in the direct wedding party, because that could be a bit stressful, but little things like that I think really help. And when we did first get engaged, we also met up with a wedding planner for an initial consultation, and that was so handy because we knew what we wanted and we knew we didn't necessarily need a wedding planner for the whole process, but we really wanted someone to almost guide us in the right direction. So sometimes even doing that, if you don't want to pay for the expense for a wedding planner from start to finish, which can be quite costly, sometimes it's nice meeting up with someone just to kind of guide you in the right direction and say, okay, so this is why you're getting married. Obviously, when we did that, we learned so many things. And for example, we were like, oh, would it be a lot cheaper to do dry hire? Which is where you kind of find a venue which doesn't have anything in it. So it will perhaps do weddings quite often, but there won't be any furniture. It would just be like a space, which then is up to you, and you can call in all your different suppliers, because often when you do find venues, especially in London, they have their recommended suppliers list. So that might be a list of 4 or 5 different caterers or florists they want you to use. And that can be quite restricting, especially if you have a vision or certain things you really want to do. Equally, that can be really helpful because it narrows it down for you and means that they know what works with the space, and it means you can really get that guidance and still have the personality in it. So there's lots of different things to consider, and talking to people who had done it before and know the venue and know what they want to do is so important. In regards to dress shopping, this is something that I've been so excited about, and I do still think it can be really, really overwhelming. And for that reason, I really believe in not going with too many people, and I am going to do a couple of sessions with all my bridesmaids because I'm really, really, really looking forward to that, and I think it's nice to have everyone there. But it is true what people say, where sometimes too many cooks it just can get a bit hectic, and I'm particularly indecisive. Even looking at my wardrobe day to day, I do get a little bit overwhelmed. So I really believe that potentially just having 1 or 2 friends with you, or even a friend and your mum or your bridesmaid, or just someone you trust with you. I've spoken to people who've said they brought their partner because they don't really believe in them not seeing it before. So it really doesn't matter, but I think just having maybe one person whose opinion you trust, or even one person who you know won't be overly vocal about their opinion. There have been times where I've tried things on and both my mum and my best friend have been like, yeah, I really like it, and even if it's not to their taste, they've appreciated that it is to mine, which is really nice, because in that sense it doesn't let that guide you too much. And I think that's really important, because it can be quite difficult when you find something and you expect a grand reaction. Everyone's like, oh yeah, it's nice, and you're like, I wanted tears. So I think that's really important, and just trust your gut as well. I think you know what you want. I'm still working it out, but having an idea, looking at different bridal boutiques. There are some amazing ones in London, but equally I've spoken to lots of friends who live in different cities or different towns and have said, oh yeah, I found my dress just down the road from my house. And don't rule anything out. Don't feel you've got to go to the biggest, most expensive boutiques, because, I mean, although that's such a nice experience, it kind of can set you up where you're like, oh my goodness, things are so expensive. So kind of having an idea about what you're prepared to spend before you go dress shopping is so helpful, because it can be really overwhelming. And it's nice to try on some really big kind of Beauty and the Beast style dresses, but it is still being like sensible to what you want to do as well, and not getting too carried away. Obviously, the overriding factor of all of this is your budget, and this is probably one of the hardest things aside from making dreaded guest lists, because it totally depends on person to person, and I do truly think a great wedding can be done on any budget, because it's so personal. And I do think there is a lot of pressure to have a really elaborate affair, and I do think you can have really gorgeous weddings with really minimal things. I think you can overanalyze the details, but I think it's picking out the details that are important to you. So if, for example, I think that's what we've realised overall is the things that really matter to us. So for example, a lot of people might want a wedding cake because people don't eat it, but for us we're like, actually we really want that. And you know, some people won't do favours at the dinner because it's an unnecessary expense. When we were talking to our caterers, they were actually saying that when you have favours on the table, a lot of people just leave them because they're so busy after dinner getting up and going to dance that they just kind of leave them on the table. It's too much faff or anything. So it's really interesting to see it from all those different perspectives. And tying into that point is the thing that's really helped me was probably the thing that we did like seconds after you got engaged, which was actually, like, my friends actually bought me some stationery, and I have found that possibly the most useful resource, because I think when you get engaged you're looking at all these different things, there's all these different, we're like, oh my god, we've got to think, all you think of is like location, budget and guests, and then everything else seems to be an afterthought. Obviously dress as well. Having all these really amazing notebooks that have planners in and budgets and guest lists. These ones are from Kiki K, as I mentioned at the beginning, and they just have the most beautiful selection. We have this Our Wedding, which is a planner, and it's an organiser, and basically it has so many amazing sections. I've been using their organisers for I've actually, on my desk over there, I've got my important documents folder from them, I've got my receipts folder for all my taxes, and they just have so many different kind of brackets within their stationery collection that really help make achieving things so much easier. And this organiser is amazing because it's got all these different sections. It's got a bit for your budget, your location, invitations, entertainment, dress, theme, food and cake. And what I really love about this and the, where is it? This and the wedding notes book, let me grab that one. This wedding notes book is great because what I really wanted with stationery was to have something that had a whole list in it that I could refer back to and not feel overwhelmed, because there are so many things that are so easy to forget, and in this it's really useful because it has got a countdown checklist. So it's got the 12-month mark, which is where we're at the moment. So it says like announce your engagement, which I suppose Instagram does already, but then like choose your dates, set your budget, do a guest list, choose your bridesmaids, decide on themes, look for reception locations, all these different things that you'd forget to do. Until recently we were like, actually, who's going to be marrying us? So when you've got like a list in front of you, it's so helpful. And again, within this, it's got a page for your guests where you can write their name, the RSVP, table number, dietary requirements, present received, and thank you notes sent. And it is so in-depth. It's possibly, out of all the things I've seen, the most, and it's a really nice little size. You can throw it in your bag. So aside from all their amazing planning journals and organisers, which are incredible, they also have all these other things which are definitely the things that I would never have thought of, which make them more special. So they have this little bride emergency kit, which is such a sweet little gift, and in here it's got things like cotton pads, little plasters, all the little things that I feel like if you were getting married would be so handy on the day in case of mini emergency. So I love that. They've also got a vowel writing kit with all these like prompts and tips and tricks. So if you're writing your own vowels, which I would love to do, and you're really scared because you're like, oh my god, I want it to be like a Richard Curtis film, this is amazing. There's also things like thank you notes, which are gorgeous, a hen party or bachelorette party memory book, which has all these little things inside where people can sign it and write about memories and what you did. And obviously they have one for the wedding. There's signs for the wedding, so you can say where the ceremony is or the reception. And then there's also this, which I've saved because it's so beautiful, and it comes in this really gorgeous kind of bound box, and it's the Our Storybook, which you can fill in together with you and your partner, and that's got things from where you first met, your engagement, planning for the big day, the day before our wedding. And I really love things like this that are really interactive and just the kind of things that I love looking back on. I remember when I was little I kept diaries, and the pages I loved the most were always the pages that had things like, I don't know, like this is how I'm feeling today, and this is just little snapshots that you can look back on, and memory books. And the fact they have these and do them so well is such a gorgeous touch, and I'm so excited to have them. Oh, got myself caught there at our wedding, and they're so gorgeous and they really aid the process. So I do really recommend, if you are feeling quite overwhelmed, to pick yourself up a really gorgeous organiser. And it has just the list where you can go, yeah, I've done that, and ticking it off feels so rewarding as well. I always find that making lists is like taking a little load off your mind every time you every time you accomplish something, which is so satisfying. So those are those things which I really was excited to talk about. The next thing I wanted to touch on is guest dressing, because aside from wedding dress shopping, which is something I'm still in the process of doing, I have been to a few weddings recently and I kind of forgot how overwhelming it is dressing as a guest. And there's all these different rules that kind of pop up in my head, which are like, okay, I can't wear white. Is this too short? Is this too like fleshy? Is it too revealing? And I think a lot of the time we end up making up these rules for ourselves. Like I think once I even heard that wearing green was unlucky, which is probably an old wives' tale. But all these things that you think, okay, I can't wear that, can't wear that. So I thought I'd show you 3 of my favourite wedding guest looks. They might be things you have in your wardrobe, or they might be things you like to pick up. I've actually used all things that are based in my wardrobe at the moment, just to show that if you do have these things, they can be reworked. The first is this gorgeous blue suit from Zara, which I picked up really recently actually, and I paired it with a tie Topshop vest cami thing, and it had this gorgeous long white bow detail, which really made it a bit more dressy. I think you can pair it with like a silk camisole underneath, but having that detail and then pairing it with white accessories was a nice kind of bridal nod. You know, there's something blue to the wedding. I think another amazing pick is a nice midi dress. There are so many at the moment on the high street. There's loads of gorgeous wrap ones, like tea dresses. I've seen so many, and I think they're a really nice bet, and they look quite modern and like, I like dresses that have like lots of purposes, and I feel like dresses like that you can wear the next day with trainers. Some of my favourites are from Rouge, and then Mango have some really gorgeous ones. The one I'm featuring is from Gani, which I have mentioned before, but I also have a midi length Topshop dress which is blue and white polka dot, which is so gorgeous. And then the last thing is a floral dress, because I do think that so many brands do this so beautifully, especially for a spring or summer wedding. Florals just look so gorgeous, especially when you're kind of, I don't know, it feels quite romantic and fairy tale like. Marks and Spencer have some absolutely gorgeous ones at the moment. Another brand that kind of do florals in a different way is Self Portrait. They do it in a really beautiful kind of, are they florals, are they just like laser cut, and it's beautiful, and I think they're really lovely different suggestions. If anyone else obviously has any wedding guest dressing suggestions, I'd love to hear, because it is something that I'm still trying to find my feet with, but I do think a cool pastel suit is absolutely fail safe, so like no black, no white, just go with the rest of it. Again, I think this is all so personal to each person, but I do think what I've learned planning a wedding is how unique it is to everybody. And sometimes I think that when you hear of somebody getting married, you almost build up this idea of what their wedding is going to be like in your own head, which can kind of put you under this pressure that doesn't exist. I know when we got engaged, and a few other people did, I was like, oh, but that wedding's going to be gorgeous, and it always is, but that doesn't mean yours won't. And when you see people's weddings, it's so easy to go on what they wanted, when I think focusing on what's important to you and your partner is the biggest thing. So yeah, I really hope this video helped in some way or was inspiring. Let me know if you'd like anything else like this. Obviously I've not done any other wedding videos on here. And yeah, I just hope it was useful, really. It's such an exciting time and it's something I absolutely love talking about, but I don't want to waffle too much. But I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and I will see you next time. Bye.